The next day, I'll never forget it, I went quail hunting, and I was driving back, and I got a phone call from Mike Pompeo's lawyer. Mike Pompeo was the Secretary of State, but before then, he was the director of the CIA. And in that position, he plotted the murder of Julian Assange. So he is a criminal as far as I'm concerned. But his lawyer called me and said, you should know that anyone who tells you the contents of classified documents has committed a crime. He's threatening me. It's in my car.
Did you hear Trump's take on the JFK assassination, why he didn't release the files?
Yeah, I know what Trump's take is.
He said that if you knew what I know, you wouldn't tell people either.
What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day. Today, we're going to talk about the breaking story from yesterday. Julian Assange has been released from prison from a plea deal. We're going to look at that and ask some questions. Why now? A lot of people are speculating online. They're saying, why? Does it have something to do with this administration? Does it have to do with the failures of the administration from the past? Is it something else? Is it because there was an attack yesterday? I hear a lot of people asking the question. So we're going to ask the questions. We're going to look at a few reasons potentially why. And then I want to play these clips of Tucker Carlson from Joe Rogan's podcast, because he's one of the people who's been going around telling people about what the last State Department was doing to Julian Assange, especially Mike Pompeo. Tucker seems to have a lot to say about him. We're going to listen to those clips, way over it. Give me a thumbs up in the chat and a thumbs up for the algorithm. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? First off, I wanted to say thanks everybody who checked out my video yesterday. I did one of my old classic reporting styles where I chop up clips and really do an expose into what I'm thinking, and the results were great. I think it's one of my most viewed YouTube videos of the week. So if that continues to be successful, I'll keep doing those when I'm inspired to do so. Thank you guys for the support on that. I read the comments, not all of them, of course, there's over 1,000, but a lot of people were saying they like those type of videos. Other people are saying we have fun on the live stream. So I'll keep doing the live streams, but if those videos do that well, I do like that style. It just takes a long time, but the payoff is always nice when people actually care and watch it. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing that, and hope you're having a wonderful week. So let's look into it real quick. I want to say, for the reasons that WikiLeaks gave for what happened to Julian Assange, I would listen to them a little bit, because I think WikiLeaks knows a lot into perhaps why maybe he got released now. Here's what WikiLeaks said. They said Julian Assange is free. And the reason they gave was, they said, this is the result of a global campaign that spanned grassroots organizers, press freedom campaigners, legislators, and leaders from across the political spectrum, all the way to the United Nations. This created the space for a long period of negotiations with the United States Department of Justice, leading to a deal that has not yet been formally finalized. We will provide more information as soon as possible. So, WikiLeaks is crediting the global campaign that spanned grassroots organizers, press freedom campaigners, legislatures, and leaders across the political spectrum, the UN. So if you want to take an optimistic take from this, your voice matters. I wouldn't say like spraying Stonehenge, like that type of climate activism seems insane. I hate those people. They're just like ruining paintings and ancient sculptures. It's like, fuck those guys or girls. Excuse my language. Sorry, too late. But with this type of stuff, like, I do think that one thing I try to say here, because anytime I say something that doesn't go along with like what everyone else is saying, people say, oh, you're just pessimistic, or you're black-pilled, or you have no solutions. But to me, the solution is not to be a fan of a politician who clearly doesn't care about a certain topic or is pretending to represent a topic when they're really not. I think the elites have figured out how to, I would say, socially engineer society, so it doesn't even really matter who wins the election. Combined with that and controlling the donor class, or the donor class controlling the politicians, it's like so many people are just running in circles. But when you actually stand for something, you make it harder and harder for these politicians to do wicked things. And, I don't know why Julian Assange exactly was released, but I would think that it became more and more unpopular for governments around the world to justify it. And I'm sure that that played some sort of role for sure. Public perception, I do believe, matters. Let's just read. I found this interesting. Mike Pence, he decided to, speak up about this. And he was the last vice president of the United States, as you all know. Mike Pence wrote, Julian Assange endangered the lives of our troops in a time of war and should have been prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The Biden administration's plea deal with Assange is a miscarriage of justice and dishonors the service and sacrifice of the men and women of our armed forces and their families. There should be no plea deal to avoid prison for anyone that endangers the security of our military or the national security of the United States ever. Although people don't like to admit this, Pence was the vice president under Trump for 4 years. Trump put him there, and he's basically crediting the Biden administration with getting Julian Assange out. I'm not a pollster, but I would assume that freeing Julian Assange is wildly popular in both parties, especially in the Republican Party. So huge misstep there for the Republican. I know most Republicans don't like Mike Pence at this point, but it's like he's like, Biden's Department of Justice did this. It's like, are you trying to get people right before the election to like them? Because I still don't. But, Julian Assange being released is a great thing. I think most people on both sides see it that way. So he's like, no. He should have got prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I'll say this before I want to play these clips of Tucker because I find it interesting, and we'll get into other stuff. First thing is this, how are you, Mike Pence, and the politicians like you that are controlled by the donor class, that are completely so far removed from reality and in your little elitist politician circles, you send all these kids off to war, you create proxy wars around the world. How are you not endangering the lives of military members, yet Julian Assange is endangering the lives of military members for saying that America's doing something against what we've been told that they're doing? I get where he's going with that, but I would say people and politicians like Mike Pence are responsible for way more lives lost, not just of American citizens, but citizens all around the world. So, they're always finding this way to gaslight us and twist us like, oh, he endangered the lives of our military. Oh, not you for supporting the war in Ukraine and Russia, not you for constantly funneling money over the last 5 decades to Israel so they can have a geopolitical conflict in another country. Not you, who probably supported all the neocon wars of the 2000s. Yeah, you're not endangering American troops at all. No, or citizens for that matter. It's just Julian Assange, right? Yeah, for sure. Anyway, speaking of, and I want to get into like all angles of this because I don't know what the play is here. I don't know if it's a political move. I don't know if Trump forced their hand by suggesting he might do it. I don't know if it's some sort of, maybe the United Nations was pushing for it and the U.S. needs the United Nations to do something for them. So it was a trade-off. You never know the real motivation behind this. I would say as reports come out and as Julian Assange speaks himself and his team, his wife, I would trust them more than the media, to be honest. But we'll find out more about why he was truly released, because there's always a motive, I think. It's not just like, oh, we really care about Julian Assange now. Yeah, but you didn't for the last 4 years or 8 years for that matter. I don't believe it. Let's look into this clip because I chopped it into a few of them. Tucker Carlson, I don't know if it was from this year or last year, but he was talking about the JFK files, and he really had a lot to say about Mike Pompeo, who was the director of the CIA, and then Trump hired him to be the Secretary of State. I believe that was Mike Pompeo's role. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tucker Carlson really does not like Mike Pompeo. He called him a criminal. And I found this whole clip interesting, so I wanted to include as much that I thought was relevant to this, because he talks about a lot of stuff and why the JFK files weren't released. And let's get right at it. So here's the first clip.
Yeah, they're still classifying documents 61 years later. Both Trump and Joe Biden have, in violation of my read of federal law, kept those documents secret. There's no living person connected to the Kennedy assassination. It was a couple generations ago. There's no one person whose secrets are being protected. It's an institution, or maybe countries. There may have been countries involved too.
So Tucker says it's an institution or countries maybe that the JFK files aren't released. They're protecting either countries or institutions. I think we all know what institutions he might be talking about, but I wonder what countries he's talking about. Or, I wonder if the guy, what's his name, Jack Ruby, the guy who killed the shooter, I wonder if he mentioned a motive, like if there was a group of people that he did the killing for. I think there actually is. You could look it up yourself. I'm not going to say it in this clip, but I'm not saying that's behind that assassination. But there are, like, if you start to read media reports about Jack Ruby, etc., there does seem to be a motive that he spoke about there, but I'm sure that's not why they're not releasing them. It's probably has something to do with American institutions or whatever. I mean, I'm not going to speculate, but a lot of people do nowadays. I mean, JFK conspiracies are probably the most famous conspiracy of all time. And I would say that some say, I don't know if this is true, but some say that that's where the word and the term conspiracy theory was created, to shut people up from looking into it. Because if you look at the definition of conspiracy, it just means two or more people, or one or more, I think over two people committing some sort of like nefarious act. That's what the word means essentially. So it's like they combine that word with theory the same way they do all these linguistic tricks they have. They'll be like, you're anti-science if you don't trust Anthony Fauci. It's like, what has he invented? What, he's a government bureaucrat who also has medical experience, but no one can question him. How can anything get invented or created or discovered if everyone just follows the model? Like every great thinker of all time went against the mold to create something new and better, like everyone ever, but now we can't do that all of a sudden because that's anti-science. Anyway, you guys get it. We got a smart crowd. Well, most people are smart. I see you're smart, you're pretty smart, 90, all the women here, you're gorgeous, you're all 10s, but you over there in the corner, you're not the brightest bulb in our group. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe if someone was tripping out watching this stream like a little bit under the influence, it might be a little trippy to have someone like, looking for him. But anyway, I'm sorry if that creeped you out, but let's get back to the videos.
I mean, I don't know the answer, but there's clearly something worth protecting. And I know that when I spoke to someone who'd seen the documents, 2 years ago, and I got one fact out of him, which is, yes, the CIA was involved. And by CIA is a huge organization, but James Jesus Angleton, the head of the operations directorate, had knowledge of this, which I think is well known. But that's the view of someone who saw the documents. So I thought that was news. So I went on TV and said that.
There was a guy named James Jesus Angleton. I've never heard of that. I'm not the most, I've studied stuff for political reasons, but when it comes to history, James Jesus Angleton sounds like he got the job right away. Someone comes in with that name, he just sounds like a guy you should hire, You're like, sounds qualified. He's like, but I dropped out of middle school. You're like, that's fine. Your name will suffice. I'm just kidding, but let's keep listening.
The next day, I'll never forget it. I went quail hunting, and I was driving back, and I got a phone call from Mike Pompeo's lawyer. Mike Pompeo was the Secretary of State, but before then, he was the director of the CIA. And in that position, he plotted the murder of Julian Assange. So he is a criminal as far as I'm concerned. But
well, I remember when Tucker first said that, I was like, whoa. He said that Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State under Trump, plotted the assassination of Julian Assange. I want to play the other clips of Tucker explaining stuff, but after 2017 to 2019, I would say I spent most of those years defending Trump from the media, defending Trump from the left, defending Trump from false accusations, because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I still stand by everything I said. I don't think I lied or, said anything wrong. It's just, that's how I was spending my time, because the media just kept lying about Trump. And I was like, that's not even true. Like, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. But afterwards, especially after COVID, when everything started falling apart, I started looking at his cabinet, and it's like he said he was going to drain the swamp. Like, it was like his political phrase. And you look at his entire cabinet, it's like he put a CIA director as the head of Secretary of State, who said, Tucker says, wanted to assassinate Julian Assange, even though Trump basically ran on the premise of, thank you, WikiLeaks, for, essentially showing information that makes me look better and Hillary Clinton look bad. So then he hires a CIA director who wants to kill that guy who pretty much helped him win the election. That's a little weird. You look at his cabinet with the FDA and HHS, I've talked about it 100 times. It's all pharmaceutical swampers. I was laughing when people were making fun of Pete Buttigieg, who's probably unqualified for Secretary of Transportation. And they're like, the Biden administration sucks. He hired Pete Buttigieg, and Pete Buttigieg can't even ride a bike. And, I'm fine with all the memes. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg sucks. He probably has no idea what he's doing when it comes to transportation, unless it's, I was going to make a joke that was offensive, so I'll just think it in my head. But no, jokes aside, jokes in my head aside, who did Trump hire for Secretary of Transportation? Nobody wanted to talk about that, right? It's like, haha, Pete Buttigieg sucks. Sure, yeah, Biden sucks. He hired a loser. Trump hired Mitch McConnell's wife for that position. So it's like, all these games of like, look at what the left's doing, but nobody has the self-awareness to call out when Trump does like the same thing. It just made me realize like, wow, maybe I got a little tricked, and maybe all these campaign slogans were just to trick independents and Ron Paul-esque Republicans into, wanting to drain the swamp, when in reality Trump filled up the swamp with some of the swampiest swamp creatures known to man. And, so much so that now Julian Assange is being let out under, according to Mike Pence, the Department of Justice under Biden, when the Department of Justice under Trump and the Secretary of State under Trump hated his guts. So it's like, interesting. Anyway, let's keep listening.
His lawyer called me and said, you should know that anyone who tells you the contents of classified documents has committed a crime. He's threatening me. This is in my car. With my dog sitting next to me, I'll never forget this. And I said, are you really saying that to reveal that the U.S. government had a role in the murder of a democratically elected president, to say that out loud, that's the crime? What about the actual crime, which is murdering a president? Like, you're covering up for that, Mike Pompeo.
What did he say to that?
Tucker's got some brass balls. Like, if I ever get to interview with Tucker, I'm going to turn the tables and be like, can I ask you a question? I know you've done a lot of stuff around the world, and I know that you've, traveled in countries and talked to leaders, but like, to go interview Putin at a time like this. Back in the day, like 20, 30 years ago, they always used to interview other leaders, even if they were at war with them or even if they were arguing with them. Like, it was very common for mainstream media to interview opposition leaders. Now they act like you're not allowed to do it. Like, don't listen to him, don't look at him. And that's kind of new, where Tucker's like, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, he's definitely ballsy, which I like and I appreciate. I wanted to say this too. I made a video yesterday. Check it out. It's about Ben Shapiro, AIPAC, and Thomas Massie. And most of the comments are whatever. But like, I notice every time I say something ballsy, people always say to me like, oh, you better be careful. You better be scared. And it's like, listen, either you're going to be something in this world or you're not. Either you're going to go for it or you're not. Like, men, I see all these posts on Twitter from people like Zuby and Cernovich. They're always talking about a man and adventure and how men have lost a sense of adventure. And I completely agree with them on that topic, where it's like, as a man, either you live an adventurous life, an interesting life, you go for it, you try to be the best version of yourself you could be in any facet of life, or you don't. But it's like this idea that not doing that is so great, and like, you should be afraid of doing something honest or, ballsy, but you shouldn't be afraid of doing nothing and being a coward. It's like, you should be more afraid of being a coward than you should be of like doing the right thing. I don't let it bother me anymore, but I always think it's so funny. It's like, oh no, you should be afraid. It's like, but you're not afraid for doing nothing or saying nothing, or, knowing at the end of the day that you could have achieved, more or done more. I think like men back in the day, they used to do things like go on the Oregon Trail, like bring their family across a boat when it wasn't so safe. It's like, men have always had a sense of adventure, and now we're being tricked into thinking that men with a sense of adventure should be so scared, and men without it, which is like 90% of them, should just feel so safe. It's like, the safe route's not safe either, and everything comes at risk, even for myself. When you do too much, you just want to chill at home. When you don't do enough, then it's like, you're like, I got to go do something because I just feel this urge to like, I just can't sit here all the time. It's like with COVID, the same analogy where they're like, sit in the house and be afraid of going anywhere. It's like, could something happen if you go to a festival around 100,000 people? Could you get sick? Absolutely. But like, is it healthy on the counter to just sit inside? It's got to be less healthy to do that than it is to like go do something. Like, everything has a risk, but they're always trying to trick men in this world and women into thinking that the safe route is the route. It's like, sit inside with a mask for 3 years and that's good for you. It's like, it's really not though. Yeah, the other side has some risk, but it's better to do something with your life than like do nothing, in my opinion. And it doesn't have to be journalism, and it doesn't have to be talking about Julian Assange or Thomas Massie and Ben Shapiro. Like, I don't even consider that special, but in general, something that's meaningful and worthwhile. You could think of 1,000 things in your head, even if it's like starting a garden and growing food or something, like that. Something is better than nothing, and everything comes at a cost. So just throwing that out there. But yeah, Tucker definitely is ballsy. And I'd never throw my fear his way. Like, oh, he shouldn't do that. I just more compliment it and be like, yeah, no, I bet he's lived an awesome life. And, he's got a family, and he's, done media for decades. So it's like, he's got everything to show for the bold life that he lives. And, I play his clips so many times on this show. I don't even mean to, but when it comes to journalism on a big scale, like, mainstream people or people as big as Tucker, pretty much nobody's as interesting as him. Candace Owens, and then she has to leave Daily Wire because she's too interesting and honest. It's like there's not many people that are worth repeating on the show and like showing clips of. But Tucker, time and time again, like who else is going to come out there and say, hey, Mike Pompeo basically, had his lawyer threaten me and wanted to assassinate Julian Assange. Like nobody else is saying this stuff, but Tucker does. He doesn't give a shit. So I appreciate it. It's definitely ballsy and it's definitely interesting to cover. So let's keep listening.
He had no response at all. And so Mike Pompeo is the one who pressed Trump to keep those documents secret. And so it's like, what's crazy to me is not just that Pompeo did that. I think Pompeo is a really sinister person and a criminal. I think that because the facts suggest that he was caught.
So he goes as far to say, I think Mike Pompeo is a criminal. And this shows the disconnect between Tucker Carlson, who's probably the most popular Republican, or at least top 5, Trump's base, who agrees with Tucker on most things, and then the people that Trump hires. Like there's a huge disconnect between like who Trump supporters want, who conservatives really want, and then what Trump does. But Trump's kind of the perfect guy, and we'll see what he does if he wins again, because it's going to be a lot harder for him to do that, which is a good thing. But it's like, he's the perfect guy to be like, no, just wait, Patriots. I'm so close to beating them. I just keep hiring them by a mistake, and I'm fighting pharma by giving them money, and I'm just the middleman. I don't know, but I do know, but I'm so smart, but I got tricked. But oh my gosh, Jared Kushner, oh no. Like he's the perfect character to keep conservatives running in circles. But I truly believe, maybe I'm too optimistic, if Trump wins, I don't think his base is going to be as tricked as they were last time. Like there was a lot of awakening. There was a lot of new people to politics. There were a lot of liberals to conservatives, or liberals to Republicans, or whatever you want to call it. Now we've had too much information for too long. So I think even the average Trump supporter is not going to be impressed with the bullshit that Trump does if he tries to do this type of stuff again. I do think there's going to be more backlash and more complaints. And I think that it actually does work. I think when people don't allow their mindset to be sculpted by people that are trying to keep them contained, that's when the politicians have to go, oh shoot, I actually have to do something. Like I have to, or else people are catching on. So let's keep listening.
Yahoo News, Mike Isikoff wrote a long piece on this several years ago. His employees went to Mike Isikoff and said, hey, Mike Pompeo is plotting to murder Julian Assange, who's never even been charged with a crime in the United States, as CIA director. That's illegal. You're not allowed. Federal employees are not allowed to just kill people they don't like. Okay, just to set the baseline here. So that's who Mike Pompeo is. But he somehow intimidated Trump into not releasing this. Well, okay, that's all bad, right? I think it's criminal behavior.
He said he somehow intimidated Trump into not releasing this. It could be Tucker probably knows Trump better than me, so I only know what I see of Trump, and I know enough because he's always all over the place. But Tucker's actually met him, and he's like behind the scenes. So I bet Tucker knows more about Trump. And this is my question. I don't know the answer. Did Trump get intimidated by Pompeo or other people into not releasing that stuff? Or is Trump not who people want him to be? I don't know. Because it's like on one hand, it's like, oh, maybe he got tricked, or maybe he got intimidated, or maybe the pressure is so strong. Could have been Pompeo, could have been the donors saying, don't do that. We gave you so much money. We don't want that. We want this. And then he does that. Could be all these things. But I've come to the conclusion, and maybe I'm wrong, and that's why I'm not overly opinionated about it. But I think that a lot of people, they want a hero. They want someone to be who they want them to be. But when you listen to Trump, like, for example, I don't care for this stream, like, what religion you are, if you're not religious, but like, I think a lot of Christians like want Trump to be like super Christian, but like he's really like not that much. Like when they ask him about his faith and asking for forgiveness, like he's really not that guy. Like he's like trying to, like, the way he talks about it, it's like, oh, I went to this church and it was cool and everybody prays for me. And they're like, yeah, do you ever ask God for forgiveness? And Trump's like, not really. Like he's not really that guy. When it comes to conservatism, he has a few opinions that I think he holds strong. Like I personally, this is just my opinion, but I think the perfect role for Trump would be like foreign policy. Like he loves doing trade deals. He loves strong arming foreign leaders like Kim Jong-un or Putin. And I think Trump's really good at representing America on a foreign scale. I don't think he's very idealistic on a lot of things. And some people would say that's a good thing. You don't want your politicians to be idealistic. Sure. But to me, this is just my perspective as a man. I think, if you're not somebody, then you're just anybody. So it's like, I think any man, I respect people who are open-minded and will change based on evidence, but it's hard to respect a man who has no opinions. They'll go this way. That's why people used to not like politicians. They used to say they're flip-floppers. They're this, they're that. Joe Biden's tough on crime. He's weak on crime. Hillary did this. She did that. Flip-flopper. That's what they used to call it. They used to run ads all the time on my TV. She flip-flopped. He flip-flopped. So, to me, Trump is a flip-flopper as well because he's not ideologically driven. And I think if you really ideologically want to do something, there's more likeliness that you'll do it. But if you're this type of guy where like nothing really matters to you, then you'll do whatever the donors tell you. You'll hire the swamp. Mike Pompeo tells you no. Chris Christie tells you to hire Christopher Wray. You hire Christopher Wray. That's kind of who Trump is. He's kind of like a traditional politician pretending to be super different and a businessman who will literally do business with anybody. It's like Pfizer's a business. Do you like Pfizer because you like businessmen? Do you not? Of course, no, because like they're not doing things that you consider ethical, but a businessman doesn't have to be ethical. Me personally, I like ethical businesses. I like men that will turn down certain deals if they know it's good for people. I don't like businesses who do things that are bad for people and they'll willingly hurt people to make money. To me, Trump's kind of like, he's kind of that guy. So this is just my question. Is he getting intimidated? Possibly. Is he getting bought out? Sure. Is he, waiting? Probably not. Is he just not who people want him to be? And he's not this guy who has like strong conviction, where I think 95% of his base, they have strong conviction. I mean, people would probably run to the southern border and build it themselves if they could. Like that's how much conviction Trump's base has. But him, I don't think he has that conviction because, and this is once again my opinion based on what I've observed during COVID. I think his true colors came out where I knew what I was going through. I knew what businesses were going through. I knew what the economy was going through. I knew that people were being psychologically abused and basically held captive. But Trump was on TV every day. He got to do 3-hour press conferences. He got to fly around in a jet. He didn't put a mask on for 5-6 months. So it's like, I don't think he really gives a shit what people are going through because he's an elitist. He gets to hang out. He's a billionaire. Like he does whatever he wants. So a lot of these things, like how badly do his supporters want to build the wall and deport people? Like really badly. How badly does he want to do it? Not that badly, because he'll still be on TV. He'll still be going to Mar-a-Lago. He'll still be surrounded by people who are obsessed with him. So his desire to do the things that his base wants him to do, I don't think are as strong as somebody that has extreme conviction. But that's just my view. Let's listen to the last clip and then we'll move on.
What's crazy is how Mike Pompeo is treated. He's treated as like a Republican poobah in good standing. He fully expects to become the Secretary of Defense in a Trump administration, which is like completely insane. Why would you take a criminal and give him nuclear weapons? Okay, that's my view. I think it's a common sense view. And like he goes to fundraisers and dinners and everyone's like, hey, Mike Pompeo. It's like, no, you're the guy who kept information the public has a right to know secret. You're the guy who plotted the murder of someone who committed no crime. You are the outlaw. You are the bad guy. But no, he's treated as like, like a pillar of Republican Washington. I think it's mind-bending to watch.
Well, there's two reasons for that. I think the first one would be Tucker nailed it. He's at fundraisers and donor meetings, and that's what politics is really about. I think Republicans are good people and they're super naive. Like they think all these politicians and media people give a shit about them, like the same way I do, and the same way that I'm willing to risk a lot of money or other things in order to tell you what I think is true. Most people are not like that in politics, not in journalism, not in media. Tucker is an anomaly. There's hundreds of people in Republican media, I would say dozens in like that level on TV. Why is Tucker so much above the other ones? Because he has a soul, he has a pulse, and he's willing to say stuff like this. All of them are willing to play the game in order to stay on television. That's why they kicked Tucker off. Like I knew they probably would. With that being said, I think people think that Republican celebrity culture is all about defending Trump and being a real patriot, but it's really like a multi-billion-dollar industry run by the donors in order to essentially get everybody bought out. So, the reason he's so popular at donors and fundraisers, like, oh, Mike Pompeo, is because the fundraisers and the donors love Mike Pompeo. which country does Mike Pompeo love just as much as America, or near as much as America? What is he always tweeting about? Where do you think everyone's getting money from? I just did a video on my last one. Like, it's pretty obvious to me. I know it's considered hate speech, even though it's like completely true, but like, he's a donor's dream, just like most Republicans are. They suck up donor money, they suck up fundraiser money, and then they do what the fundraisers and donors want. So it's no surprise to me that Pompeo is popular at Republican fundraisers. So is every Republican who does what the donors want them to do. With that being said, is he popular in MAGA? I don't really know. It's hard for me to really tell what people are thinking. But on one hand, I think a lot of people are like, nah. On another hand, I think if you just worship Trump and you say, I'm pro-Trump and I'll defend him from the media, Trump supporters, not all, but a lot of them will just like you. So people like Mike Pompeo and Rick Grinnell, they're well loved because they just like Trump. And that's really all you have to do in order to get these people to like you. It's sad to say, but it's kind of true. I wanted to show this clip because I've heard Rick Grinnell is a super nice guy and he was the director of national intelligence. And I'm not saying anything about him, but this is just the reality. I'll just show you real quick. This is a picture recently from Log Cabin Republicans, which is the homosexual like lobbyist group or something. They do gay lobbying or something. And it says, President Trump just called our Log Cabin Republicans, and they phoned into Rick Grinnell. He's like the head of the gay Republicans because he's like the top of the pyramid when it comes to like gay Republicans in politics. He was the director of national intelligence. Glenn Greenwald reported last year, he said Rick Grinnell was the one who played the lead role in coercing and bullying Ecuador's pathetic, subservient, and malleable president, Lenin Moreno, into withdrawing the asylum Assange had from his predecessor, Rafael Cordera. But he was acting at Pompeo's direction. So you see the disconnect? Like, Rick Grinnell is a gay Republican who loves Donald Trump. So at a gay event, he's well loved because he's like the top dog at the gay event. Like he's like the top of Log Cabin Republicans. He's the highest level gay guy in right-wing politics. Okay. He's well loved in MAGA culture because Rick Grinnell will stand on a stage and say, Trump is being persecuted. Trump is great. Trump is awesome. So then MAGA and Republicans are like, yeah, he's our guy. He's awesome. But a lot of people don't know that he played a huge role in, apparently, according to Glenn Greenwald, who's probably one of the best journalists in modern history and is connected to WikiLeaks, Snowden, stuff like that. So he has he knows a lot about that. He said that he was actually the one who bullied Ecuador into turning over Julian Assange, because Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy, it wasn't probably the greatest life. I'm sure he wanted to be free, but it was a better life. He was getting bullied and according to reports, mistreated in the prison. So this is what people don't understand. And it's hard to explain to someone that sees everything through the lens of Trump and Biden, where it's like, Biden obviously sucks. He's a liar. He's a puppet, and he's just an unimpressive person. He's just very unimpressive. But everybody just assumes, well, Trump says all these things on stage. Trump says WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks, WikiLeaks. He must really be the guy to be the independent and fight the deep state. But Trump, in many ways, is just as deep state as Biden, and in some ways even more, which is hard to fathom because Biden is like, 1 + 1. It's like the same thing. But like, if you really look at Trump, all of these things, even the pharmaceutical stuff, like people will say, oh, Trump just got tricked. No, a lot of that stuff happened because Trump is a sellout. Like, he's just as big of a sellout as Biden and Obama on that topic, perhaps even more of a sellout in some cases. So, everyone will say, oh, this just happened to the side of Trump. No, Trump was actively involved in that. And I'm convinced that all of that might have not even gone down if Trump wasn't such a sellout. Same with the Julian Assange stuff. Is Trump this innocent victim who's just getting played? No, he's hiring people who are turning him over, who are throwing him in jail, who are trying to kill him. Like, Trump is extremely deep state. In some cases, he's more deep state than average deep state. He just says that he's not on stage. So you're watching it happen right now with Biden. It's like Biden, I don't like Antony Blinken or his department, whatever, Merrick Garland. He seems frightening. But with that being said, it wasn't Trump's Secretary of Defense. It wasn't Trump's Department of Justice that did this. Trump's hires were going after Julian Assange even harder. And it's the same thing with gun control. This is why I don't even make that many videos as much as I used to when I spend all that time, because it's like, what's the point? It's all fake. It's all theater. Trump says he's for the Second Amendment, and he infringed on the Second Amendment. And the Supreme Court just overturned it, the bump stock ban, and all these pro-Trump slobbers won't even post that Trump was the one who overturned it. Trump infringes on the Second Amendment more than a lot of Democrats. Trump infringed on the First Amendment with the anti-Semitism speech laws that he passed in 2019, and then he pardoned an Israeli spy from prison. If Mike Pence really cared so much about, Julian Assange broke the law, so did Jonathan Pollard and his handler, but Trump had no problem sending them back to Israel, or sending one of them back to Israel on Trump's donor's jet, and probably Mike Pence's donor's jet. So he doesn't care about a foreign spy. No, they send him back home on a jet. Like, Trump is so not an outsider. It's ridiculous. He infringes on the Second Amendment. He infringes on the First Amendment. He hires people who hate Julian Assange even more than Democrats do and try to go after him even more than Democrats do. He prints more money than Obama. And then a bunch of low IQ or, brainwashed Republicans just hail him as the new messiah of conservative politics, even though ideologically he has no conviction to almost anything conservative. So, I'll just say this at the end of the day. I'm interested to see the debates on Thursday, even though it's probably going to be trash and they're both going to be just talking to their donors, pretending like they're talking to you. But in general, it's like, I'm glad Julian Assange is out of prison. I don't care why it's really for. Like, is there ulterior motive? Did Trump push them by saying he was going to? Is it something else? It's hard to really tell why they did it, and I don't know what their true motives are, but this guy was in prison for so long. So, regardless of what you think of him, I don't think he belonged in there for that long, or perhaps at all. I don't think. And this happened under Biden's administration. It's not saying he's awesome, but if Trump would have, if I would say this, if Julian Assange came out of prison during Trump's watch, everyone would credit Trump. They'd be like, I don't care who did it. If it was this person or that person or this person, or maybe it wasn't him, we're giving Trump credit because he's the president. And now Assange is getting out under his watch. Nobody's going to credit Joe Biden because Joe Biden sucks, but it's like Julian Assange is coming out under his watch. Why? Well, because Trump was pardoning rappers and foreign spies for his donors instead of pardoning this guy, because that's who the Republican Party is, in my view. They're worth voting for if you think they're the lesser of two evils. They're worth voting for if you think they're going to hire judges and Supreme Court people, which I understand why people vote Republican. But this type of stuff, it's just making me, this is my personal perspective, it's making me wonder if they're even the lesser of two evil, because Biden, he's so bad domestically. Like, Biden and Democrats are so bad at cities. I'm a registered Republican. I vote all Republican. I can't will myself to vote for Democrats. And I don't think I ever will unless they completely change their platform and become more America first, which they're not. So, like, I would never vote for Biden. I would never vote for Democrats. But my desire to vote for Republicans, it kind of is getting smaller and smaller personally, because it's like, I believe in the First Amendment. Republicans are infringing on that so hard for their donors. I believe in the Second Amendment. Trump infringed on that after a tragedy happened, like a puppet. I believe in medical freedom. Trump did a better job than Democrats as far as medical freedom. But when it comes to giving the tools to Big Pharma to persecute us with tens of billions of dollars of socialist money and then buying their doses, Trump is a pharmaceutical socialist scam artist, and he deserves credit for what he wants credit for. He's the father of the vaccine. I don't even know if it would have happened if Trump weren't in office. Like, that's how big of a deep state pharma guy he is. And here's the craziest part too. This is why I don't like to pick fights with people and I like to mind my own business. But I log into Twitter and a bunch of these people that I respect and I follow, they're like, I wish Vivek would be vice president. Like, really? A billionaire hedge fund guy turned pharmaceutical manager who said he cried on, or pharmaceutical bro who said he cried on January 6th. That's who you want to be vice president? Republicans, even libertarians, they're so stupid. Everybody's so stupid and fake. It's like, what's the point of even like, I wish Vivek could be vice president? You want a pharmaceutical billionaire who said he cried on January 6th to be Trump's vice? Well, you trust him. Yeah, because he popped up a year ago and said everything you wanted him to say. Like, Republicans, libertarians, Americans, they're so easy to trick. They're so easy to scam. It's like, all of the other choices suck. And then they give you this guy who comes out of nowhere. What type of libertarian said they cried on January 6th? No libertarians cried on January 6th, but Vivek said he did on Fox. And he's probably lying. He probably didn't cry. And then if you're going to lie about crying, what else would you lie about? And if you didn't lie about crying and you really cried, I don't want a vice president who cries on January 6th, because that's like what babies do. So it's like, but that's the outsider. That's the new outsider that they want that to push Trump libertarian, who, had one of the largest IPO launches in history that went from like $100-something down under, I think, $1. Like, that's your outsider now. It's like, people, politics is like theater for people that are just like either stupid or pretending to be stupid to get engagement. I can't really tell which one it is. Like, are you, because I'll bring some of these people on my show and they'll be like, yeah, no, I know. It's like, if you know, then why do you always say that stuff? You could say, you don't have to agree with me, but it's like, are you just doing it to like, it's like team sports, like, the Cleveland Browns suck, but this year they're going to win the Super Bowl, and you make a bunch of videos about it. I don't really know what it is at this point, but watching all this stuff happen, it just makes me ask the question of like how fake opposition are Republicans? Because 4 years ago, I would have said they're fake opposition, sort of. During COVID, I was like, no, they're like completely fake opposition. I would say they're like borderline communists. They're saying 15 days to slow the spread is good, but Sweden's bad. Like I called Trump a communist during 2020. Now, it's like part of me, yeah, I hope they win, I guess, to see what happens and see if they could close the border or whatever. But like, I know the truth of Republican politics. They're so sold out to donors. So is the left. They're just different donors. But like when Trump gets in, is he going to hire the swamp again? Because the swamp he hires infringes on the first two amendments and tries to essentially go after Julian Assange. And the deep state swamp Democrat Joe Biden administration lets him go. And then Trump pardons a foreign spy, and then his vice president gets on here and gives Biden credit for pardoning Julian Assange and says, someone who broke the law should stay in jail. Oh, but not the guy who was pardoned for your donors. You don't say anything about that, do you, Mike Pence? He's a fraud. Mike Pence is a fraud. Everybody knows it, so I don't even have to talk about it. But let me know what you think. I'm happy that Julian Assange has been freed. I don't know the real reasons. They could be doing it for political reasons. It could be because so many people voice their opinion. I don't know, but I would guess this, and I don't know this for sure, but this is like literally a guess with, not a lot of confidence. Like I would say I'm like 90% confident. This is just my personal thought when I read this stuff. And, WikiLeaks mentioned United Nations as being a part of why. United Nations agrees with the establishment on a lot of things because the United Nations is a global establishment, essentially, like the WHO and the, they are establishment. But all the establishments don't always agree. And I think that the United Nations, they don't agree with the West on some of the wars going on, not all of them, but, especially I think the United Nations feels a little bit strongly about the Israel-Palestine war. I don't think they agree with Mike Pompeo and, the Secretary of State under Biden. So I'm not saying this is why. It could completely not be, but I'm just like, is it striking a deal? Like if you have all this pressure from certain groups to stop persecuting Julian Assange, do you say, hey, I'll let him out of jail if you do this for me, or I'll pardon him? There's got to be some sort of play. At best, maybe like, oh, I want to be credited with this because it's an election season. Could be that. All of a sudden Joe Biden goes from open borders Biden to like, oh, we need to secure our border. It's like, shut up, Sleepy Joe. You didn't do anything for 4 years. You're responsible for the worst border crisis in modern history. You're damn near proud of it. You lie about it. Mayorkas is a complete disgrace. I mean, it's ridiculous what that guy's done. And now you care about border security? It's election season stuff. It could be that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I might read a few, and then I'm going to keep this kind of brief. I'm happy Julian Assange is out of jail. Still don't trust the Biden administration, but another L for Trump, in my opinion, that he pardoned foreign spies and other people and left Julian Assange out to dry. And the reason is not only did Trump hire people like Grinnell and Pompeo who weren't, for the Julian Assange stuff, and Mike Pence and pretty much everyone Trump hired, but also the donors. I'm just going to say Trump takes hundreds of millions of dollars from donors. Even during his administration, he took $400+ million from a certain family in donor money. And he does what the donors want. Trump is like a giant puppet, pretending to not be. So, we'll see what happens. But I think if the donors paid Trump to pardon Assange, he would have pardoned Assange. But they paid him a hefty amount to pardon another spy from another country. And when he got sent back to that country, he got a hero's welcome with the prime minister happy to see him. That's who Trump is. That's who Pompeo is. That's who the false opposition Republicans are. It's the truth. It's not hate speech. It's who they are. It's their priority. It's what they do. They just pretend to have the same priorities as you guys. That's my opinion. Let's read a few. Have I read Stephen Mitford Goodson's book about central banking? I have not. Someone said most of our politicians act like crooks. I hear that. Someone said I got a big donor in my pants. Disrespectful. This is a show for all people, and you come out here talking about I got a donor in my pants. Does that mean they're going down on you? As the kids are saying, or the internet's saying now, the hawk tua on, for the donor money. Disgusting, degenerate, filth. Get out of here. Keep that in June, okay? July, we're not doing that. I'm just kidding. But let's read. Someone said, imagine being on the big bankers and Rothschild's team. Yeah, they're having a great time for sure. I don't know that for sure, but maybe. When you own the banks, I mean, you're definitely crushing. It's like, did we make money today? Oh yeah, everybody owes us interest and mortgage. Wow, what do you know? We made $100 million today. That's awesome. Who would have known except for us and everyone? Someone said, I did a podcast 2 years ago on Julian Assange. Were you aware he was forced vaccinated, then he had a stroke? No, that's really scary. That's creepy. Is that true? I wouldn't be surprised, because if you're in prison, you lose rules like that. Dude, that's really scary. Anyway, someone said, let's start a bank together, bro. I'm going to end on this note. I mean, I'm good on the banking. I don't think I'm not a banker. It's not like my calling. But with that being said, I think true happiness comes from not just purpose, but enjoying the present moment. This morning I went out and I just did some stuff without my phone, and the energy, if you go out for an hour, say you leave your phone at home and you go do something and you don't even have it in your car, most people play music from it, you do this and that. The energy when you don't have your phone, you have to be in the present moment, because there's no option to look or check. And I think people need to get back to the present moment. The phone is a beautiful tool. I'm appreciative of it. But, if everybody just crushes in the present moment, you could have even more fun than a banker, because you could have all the money in the world and still not be happy, and still not have purpose, and still, have your mind all over the place. So, we're not going to be jealous of the bankers here. We're going to let them do their thing. But, bankers, if you're watching this, you might be a fan. The inflation's a little tough, been a little sneaky. What do you say about building some cool stuff for the people? Back in the day, they used to commission great paintings and the buildings were awesome. Now everything's just kind of lame. So, if you're a banker watching this, you can't hate on the people too much, even though I know they're a little dumb and they still believe you're puppets. Even the bankers are probably how do you not see this? They're we've been doing the same thing for 50 years. They're but it's going to be different this time because Obama and Trump's going to be different this time. And they're how do these people not know what we're doing? We buy both sides. It's the same strategy for 50 years. No, but this puppet's different because he says the things that I want him to say. It's the bankers are probably ugh, these people. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Someone said that it's the people inside the government that's destroying the way of life. Sure, but I mean, and I'm not just saying this. You get the leaders that you deserve, not the leaders you want. America's getting the perfect leaders that represent America. It's just not what you want. You're just not being honest with yourself. It's being one of those massively obese chicks and being look, I'm a Victoria's Secret model. It's I mean, I guess you might get a contract, but people don't find you as attractive as that girl, just being honest. So I feel that's America. Everybody wants the old Victoria's Secret models, but we deserve Biden and Trump at 80 years old, because nobody wants to really figure out what's going on. Once you really figure out what's going on, you realize that most Republicans are just as brainwashed and egotistical as Democrats. You don't want to think that if you're a Republican. You're I'm so much smarter. I believe in certain things. And it's not true. And you start to realize this sort of stuff too. A lot of Democrats are annoying and dumb and they're brainwashed, and some of them are rude and they're intolerant. And I see all those things too. But it's so many people think just because they're Republican, they must be so smart, or they must be such a good person. Liking Trump doesn't make you a good person, So it's there's a lot of shitbags in Republican politics and media. There's a lot of shitbags that just sit and yeah, I'm going to live vicariously through that guy because that makes me feel good. And they're not even good people. So it's America will heal when the people heal themselves. All of this other stuff is happening because people allow it. And the liberals have gone insane, and the Republicans are such fake opposition, but they don't think they are, because they want to believe that because the other side's so bad, it must be good. Let me give you an example that's so simple. I thought of it yesterday. I've said similar stuff, but I really nailed it down. It's like, say you're Michael Jordan or LeBron James or, Luka Doncic or any, Jason Tatum, any good basketball player. What makes them good is not that there's two other bad teams that exist out there somewhere. It's the fact that they're really good, like on a scale of like what you could possibly be, like they're the best. It would be like if the Democrats and Republicans were basketball teams, they would be like kindergarten teams where like nobody could even dribble. They're traveling all the time. And then like the Republicans look at the left and the left looks at the right. And they're like, look how shitty those people are. That must mean I'm really good at basketball. Like I'm like really going to fix America because we're so good. But the truth is like both teams suck. Like they're both at such a low level that even if you win, you still lose. And it's like, comparing yourself to something horrific to tell yourself that you're better does not make you good. Like, does it make you better? Possibly, but like, it's never going to fix America because the two options are so controlled and so shitty that the people have to realize this. Like enough people on one side or both sides or in general have to realize this, and then the Overton window can shift back. As long like Trump, in some ways, he's the best and worst thing that ever happened to politics. He woke a lot of people up that never knew the truth, which is amazing. But also he destroyed both sides. He destroyed the liberal side. They lost their minds over Donald Trump. They've still never recovered. And then Trump has also like essentially, brainwashed hundreds of millions of Republicans into like he's daddy, and they just don't want to think straight because they think it's Coachella or like a Nelk Boys like Happy Dad show where they're just getting wasted. Woo! We're the better side. We're Republican. Yeah, put on a country song. It's like, I like country too. I'm just saying like that's really what's going on. So the cycle continues until enough people are like, wait a second, this isn't really a solution. This is just like kicking the can down the road. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Check out my other video. The results went really well. I said, hey, if you guys like this, give me a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know. Like I said, it got like 2 to 3 times as many views as my recent live stream. So if the results are good and people like it and appreciate it, then I'll start putting in the work this is work as well. It's just a different type of work like that. I got to edit that video for like hours upon hours, but that's what I do. And that's what I think made me the most successful was like doing shorter videos. Podcasting's cool. I think I'm good at it. But in general, it's like these short, informative videos that get to the point and they're so convincing because it's like so obvious. That's really what I'm best at. So I'm super grateful that people watched it and it got a decent amount of views. And, that definitely, makes me happy. So thank you guys for supporting. It's been a long time I've been doing this and just still doing well. So I'm very grateful. I appreciate you guys. And I'll be back with more videos soon of live stream and this type. And I want to let you guys know, I don't know if I have it, but I have white hats. I don't know how many left. I would say not very many. So if you ever wanted a white hat, this is a black hat. I'm putting it on the wrong way, but I don't know. I'm not going to put it on. You get it. It's a black beanie, dreamrare.com. But if you wanted one of those slick white baseball type golf hats, dreamrare.com. They're almost sold out. So get one now. Appreciate you guys. Have a beautiful day. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping the